Welcome to Brooker Bonsai, and today we're going to be repotting my blue spruce. I've had this blue spruce for probably about 3 years now, and it was really long and leggy, so what my focus has been over the past few years is just pruning it back hard, letting those buds flush out and continuing to do that so that we get ramification much closer to the trunk. We're starting to see that. You can see here we've got some nice branches here. This one will be removed later. And then as you go up the tree, it gets much tighter. So the next phase for this work, for this tree, is to begin building that ramification. It's been probably 2-3 years since I repotted this tree, so I want to just put it into just more of a ceramic pot. This tree sits at the top of the garden in the full sun, and in midsummer, with it just being in a plastic pot, it's really hard for the roots to regulate those temperatures. So the foliage really likes that heat, but the roots really struggle. So my strategy is to put this into a pot, and hopefully that will help keep the roots cool, help maintain that moisture level within the soil, and just let the tree kind of grow, probably untouched this year, to build up strength. Next year I'll come in and just continue to kind of prune and push back and build up that ramification. So it doesn't look like much now, but my vision for this tree in the next kind of 2 or 3 years, we should see it starting to kind of fill out a lot more. So let's zoom you in and take a 360 view look at the tree now. So here's the front of the tree. As you can see, we've got a nice branch here. This will be all ginned off once this strengthens. We've got our secondary branch here, and again, same thing over time, pushing that foliage back. Coming round to the side, this is probably going to be a gin, so I'm just building some nice movement. Going around to the back of the tree, to the side, and back to the front. The one thing I really like about this tree is its root base here. We've got a little bit of sorting to do with these roots, but overall it's got this nice kind of anchored, flared trunk that we want to continue to develop. We've pruned off some big roots at the back here, and they've almost completely healed. This black stuff is cut sealant, which just helps with the healing of the tree, but you can see it's all rolled around here nicely, and it's only small holes there to be filled. So today we're going to repot the tree. We're going to be putting it in this blue pot. I really like this blue. I think it will complement the blue needles quite nicely, especially when they flush out. But this is really just a training pot for the tree. It's a nice big ceramic pot that will help regulate that temperature, give the tree a lot of space to grow into over the next few years. So let's take the tree down off this stool and take it out of the pot and have a quick look at those roots before we begin any root work. So for this root work, I'm going to need 3 tools. I'm going to need my concave cutters for those bigger roots. I'm going to need some root pruning shears that are just cheap scissors, and then a pair of tweezers to help you rake out the roots, and I'll show you how I use these in a bit. I prefer this to a chopstick. It gives you kind of better angle, as well as it makes it much easier to comb. So let's take the tree out of the pot now. I'm just going to grab it by the trunk and lift it up and out of the pot. So you can see that the tree is kind of starting to grow throughout the soil, but it hasn't filled the pot, it's not root bound. But that's fine, we're only giving it a light root prune today and just kind of rearranging the roots and settling it into its new pot. So if we turn the tree over, you can see that we've got 1 or 2 root hairs that's starting to grow, but everything is still quite dormant. So this is a good sign that the tree is ready to be potted. If it was full of white hairs, then I would probably want to leave it. It would be too late. So the first things first is just want to come in and rake off this topsoil. Using the tweezers, you can see I'm raking it out radially. What this does is it rips any of those crossing roots and keeps those kind of long running roots. You want these kind of long roots because ultimately they help the tree build taper and they contribute to the flaring of the trunk. This process, especially with spruce and pines, you want to be very careful with their roots. They don't like to take too much root pruning or disturbance to the roots, so aftercare for these trees will be really important to ensure that they, it stays healthy and bounces back, particularly for a spruce that has as little foliage as this that I took off in winter last year. So I'm just teasing out the roots that are circling around the edge of the pot. The soil is in a really good condition, so I'll probably just reuse this and put this back in the new pot. And what's really pleased to see is that we've got lots of fibrous roots, and it's these fibrous roots that makes it easier to repot the trees, and ultimately that making it easier for them to bounce back after repotting. If they were really big thick roots and you're cutting them off, that can really weaken the tree and potentially cause the tree to die. So just continuing to rake out the tree. You'll notice that spruce roots are really wiry and quite strong, and that's really good. So we've got lots of roots to choose from here. Plenty of choices really, which is quite nice. Also just taking the opportunity to remove any moss from around the roots, because the moss can actually cause the roots to become discoloured, and if the bark on the trunks remain too wet from the moss, in the long term this can actually cause the bark to flake off. One of the really nice advantages of a spruce is that kind of really nice textured bark, so we want to make sure that we're preserving that. So now that we've got most of the roots kind of cleared for the soil, I'm going to take this outside and just give it a spray down with my mister. So let's go do that now. So we're outside now and I've got my mister. What I want to do is just adjust that nozzle to a jet spray, and then just come in and spray down the roots like this. This just removes any excess soil without damaging the roots too much. The water, won't damage those nice fibrous roots. It just helps push and break down the soil that might otherwise be trapped in there. So that's the roots now all cleaned up. It's time to come in and begin that root work. So here's the root base, and the first thing I notice, we've got, if I turn it round, multiple root planes. We've got some nice surface roots that we've been developing, and then obviously I've kind of chopped the tap root at some point in the tree's life. We've got lots of fine roots coming out here. So today we're going to be brave. I'm going to take this taproot back up a little bit, and all we can really do is slowly walk this taproot back up throughout the years. So for that I'm actually going to need my ratcheting pruners, which are these here. And what this allows me to do is, as I put in pressure, it holds it and it allows me to press it down and cut through those bigger chunks. So I'm going to try and be a bit conservative and just chop off this lower like quarter or third and see what we're left with. So as expected, cutting off that lower third, there's a lot of roots there. I'm glad I was maybe more conservative than I usually would be. So I'm probably just going to give this now a light pruning and a minor root selection. You can see that there's this root kind of back here that goes, straight down. So let's remove that. And I think the rest are fine. When we repot this, we just want to make sure that we position these roots this way, so that as they grow into the soil, they're kind of radial. The back of the tree doesn't really have much, which is a bit of a shame, but we can't really do much about that at the moment. All we can do is continue to, work on these trees, particularly with spruces, and just push things back as much as we can, bit by bit. There's a root that kind of crosses and then goes back into the tree, so let's pull that forwards. And hopefully over time we can build a really nice root base. So the last thing we want to do is just comb these roots out radially and then come in with our scissors and just cut them back. Like that. So cutting those fibrous roots back like I did at the end won't really weaken the tree at all. In fact, those roots should respond quite nicely and grow new tips really quickly. What will weaken the tree is that big mass of roots, those thick roots that are removed at the bottom. So aftercare will be crucial for this tree to ensure that it is, that it bounces back and it can recover. What I'll be doing is, once we've repot it in this new pot, is keeping it inside the greenhouse here over the next couple of months. I'll probably place some rocks on the soil and tie it down onto the pot so that it doesn't move and we don't disturb those roots. And then when kind of probably midsummer comes in, I'll start to kind of transition it outside, first in the shade and then slowly out into full sun, probably by late autumn. So let's clean down our work surfaces now and get ready to put this tree in its new pot. So here's the training pot that I've got for this tree. It's just one of those ceramic outdoor pots from the garden centre. It has a slight chip on the lip, so I'm going to face it to the back. But the blues will really match the blues from the spruce when they have that initial flush of growth come spring. So the first thing I'm going to do is place this mesh onto the drainage screen. That mesh is actually the plastic mesh that comes around garlic cloves. I like to keep them because they make really good drainage screens, and we're reusing plastic, so there's always that added benefit too. The next step is to add just a layer of gravel on the bottom here, and that will really help with drainage and aeration in this pot. So I had some gravel left over from the the original soil in the original pot, so all I'm going to do is pour that back into the pot there and then settle it down. And that'll just help the roots get, air into the bottom of the soil and really help with that healthy root growth. So the next thing is I'm going to take that reused soil and begin filling up this pot. So the soil mix that I use is 50% Akadama, 50% perlite. This is quite small particle soil because it's used soil and the tree breaks it down slowly over time. But for this spruce, this is really good enough. This is still really crumbly and perfect for repotting trees. So I'm just going to begin adding this used soil back into the pot. Covering that gravel layer, making sure it's nice and even, and then begin building up a mound in the centre. I'll show you that now. So you can see the mound that I've created in the centre of the soil here, and this is where that root base is going to be placed on top of, so that we can ensure that we've got soil underneath those roots. I can see this a little bit long still on the side, so let's prune that back. Want to be giving the tree space to grow into the pot, and these are fibrous roots, so the tree should be fine with cutting them. So next, just making sure everything's facing in the right direction before settling it down on the soil and just combing in those roots so they're all facing a nice radial direction. This is a circular pot, so not too worried about the pot front at this stage. It's just a training pot for this tree. So I'm going to begin just filling the tree with soil just so it holds in place. So now that the tree's been put into the pot, the next thing I want to do is check for placement. This is really important. With it being a round pot, it doesn't matter whether it's too far to the left or the right because it's a round pot. But what I want to make sure is that the tree is kind of leaning in the right way that I want it to, so that when it settles into its new home for the next couple of years, those branches and roots that develop along that specific plane. Once those roots get thicker and those branches get thicker, it gets much harder to adjust those kind of angles, so we want to make sure we spend a bit of time now getting that right. So looking at the tree, it's kind of leaning quite far this way, so we want to lean it backwards like that. We also want to make sure it's kind of leaning slightly towards us, and that's always good practice with bonsai trees because it makes the tree look more powerful because it's kind of coming towards you in that viewing angle rather than away. So just settling the soil down into the roots in this new planting angle. Just going to move this up that way so you can see the trunk. And hopefully you can see that there. So the tree is slightly to this side of the pot because the trunk curves and we've got negative space here. It's more or less upright, but the top of the tree kind of leans forwards, and the angle of the trunk, you can see here on the side, is slightly leaning towards the viewer. So I want to just hold the tree in that position and begin working the used soil down into the root base, slowly kind of getting getting all of those soil particles down in between the roots. And as those air pockets disappear, you'll find that the tree becomes much more stable in the pot. You see here with the chopstick, I'm just holding it loosely and just teasing the soil down into the roots, and this allows the soil to flow between all of those roots. And that's why, you know, crumbly soil like this is so important. If I was to use potting mix, it would just push all the roots to one side, compact down, and the tree wouldn't get the air it needs in the roots. And air is really important for healthy root development. And as I go through this process, the tree will become firmer and firmer in the pot. But with us taking so much roots off this tree today, we'll place some rocks and tie the tree down. So you'll notice that I don't use wire to hold my trees down in the pot. A lot of people do use wire. So what they'll do is they'll run wire up the bottom through the drainage hole, and then just tie down those roots with the wire. Now, I feel quite strongly about that because for me the roots are a really important part of bonsai. And I've seen loads of bonsai channels where they just kind of jam all the roots into the pot. They don't kind of spend the time creating that nice radial root base, particularly with conifers. And for me, I'd much rather spend a while developing those root bases, or even risking losing the tree to develop a really nice radial root base that you'll be proud of in the future. So by tying the tree down into the pot as you begin growing the tree, especially when your plans are to grow rapidly, like I'm hoping in this new home here, the roots will swell, they'll begin to kind of bite into that wire, and then you'll end up with really nasty scars on your roots. So I tend to just put rocks down on the surface and also just tie the tree down with some yarn, some string, and this just ensures that the tree can grow. Once those roots are established, you remove the rocks, you remove the string, and the tree's happy and healthy. I also have the added benefit of being able to keep my trees indoors when I've repotted them, and this really helps with that part of the process. So the tree's now repotted. You can see it's really firm in the pot, which is good. There's no air pockets. I'm just going to pile soil slightly higher up against the root base for now, just to keep those roots extra protected. And then probably autumn time I'll rake them back, exposing that nice radial root base. So now that the tree's repotted, it's time to tie it down to the pot. And like I said, this is just to ensure that the tree remains as still as possible as those roots are developing and growing, and it's re-establishing itself in the pot. The advantage of tying the tree down like this is that you can see when the trunk begins to bite into the rope, and and the trunk thickens up much slower than, say, those kind of individual roots. So you can leave this on for, you know, much longer, and the tree is fine. But probably I'll be taking this off, you know, mid-summer, once those roots have had time to regrow and fill out the pot. So that's the tree now repotted. It's time to give it a really good watering and to settle in that soil and flush out any dust. I'll then leave the tree to be protected inside for a few months as it re-establishes that root base. So I'll show you that in just a minute. But if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave us a like and let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you're new to the channel, welcome. There's a subscribe button in the corner of the screen there, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.